Today, I'm going to break down three of the clearest indicators that a woman's sense of attraction has already been activated. But don't rush through this, because the third signal is the one most men experience in real life and completely overlook right when it matters most. Before anything else, there's something you need to understand. If you've ever missed moments like this in the past, it was never about you being awkward, inexperienced, or lacking confidence. The real issue is simpler. No one ever taught you how to read the language of female attraction. And that language doesn't work the same way as the male one. It operates on a completely different frequency. Think about those situations you might have already lived through. You're sitting with a woman, the conversation flows, there's laughter, a sense that something is building, but nothing ever actually happens. Later, you replay it in your mind, asking yourself if you missed a sign. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Most men go through this exact experience without realizing what was unfolding beneath the surface. Once you start recognizing these patterns, your entire perception changes. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, and what I'm sharing here isn't theory or manipulation, it's awareness. It's about noticing subtle emotional and psychological cues that appear naturally when attraction is already present. Attraction rarely shows up in obvious ways. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. If you're not trained to see it, you'll miss it completely. Men tend to express desire directly. Women, on the other hand, express it indirectly. They test the environment, they create openings, they observe how you respond. She rarely steps through first. She waits to see if you notice the door she's opening for you. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For most of human history, caution ensured safety. So the female mind developed a natural filtering system, reading subtle behavior before making decisions. That instinct still exists today. This is why attraction shows up through signals rather than declarations. And most of them are unconscious. She isn't planning each gesture. Her body reacts before her mind catches up. The nervous system reveals what words don't. Your role isn't to overthink it or force an outcome. It's simply to stay present enough to notice and respond calmly. When you do, she experiences something powerful. She feels understood without having to explain herself. And that feeling is a strong form of attraction. Let's start with the first signal. She begins initiating light physical contact without necessity. This is often misunderstood. Many men dismiss it as friendliness, but context matters more than the touch itself. One casual touch means little, but repeated intentional contact changes everything. Does she find multiple excuses to touch your arm? Does her hand linger slightly longer than normal? Does she repeat the behavior throughout the interaction? That pattern matters. When attraction is present, the body naturally seeks closeness. Touch becomes a way of testing emotional comfort, checking whether connection is safe, welcomed, and mutual. That extra second before she pulls away is especially meaningful. It reflects hesitation mixed with curiosity. A moment where she allows herself to feel something before withdrawing. Let me illustrate this. A client once described sitting next to a woman at a group dinner. Throughout the night, she would lightly touch his arm when reacting to his stories. At first, he assumed it meant nothing, but over time, he noticed a pattern. Each touch lingered slightly, followed by a brief pause where she would look at him as if waiting for a response. He never responded to those moments. The night ended, nothing progressed. Later, he discovered she had been interested, but assumed he wasn't. That's how subtle these signals can be and how easily they disappear. So what should you do when you notice this? Stay grounded. Don't shift into nervousness or overconfidence. Simply match the energy naturally. If she initiates light contact, you can mirror it in a calm, effortless way later in the interaction. Maintain eye contact during these moments. It deepens emotional awareness. And most importantly, don't rush. Attraction develops in pauses, not pressure. Now, shift your attention from isolated actions to patterns. One gesture means little. Repeated behavior tells the truth. Signal one is really about comfort. She won't initiate physical contact repeatedly unless she already feels a baseline sense of safety with you. That's the foundation attraction builds on. Now let's move deeper into signal two. This one is far more subtle and far harder to fake. It's all in her eye contact. Not just whether she looks at you, but how she does it. When attraction is present, eye behavior changes. Her gaze holds a fraction longer than normal. Not in a forced way, but in a charged, quiet intensity. Then she breaks eye contact, not randomly, but by looking downward briefly before returning. That downward glance is important. It often signals emotional softness, a moment where internal tension releases briefly before she reconnects again. It becomes a rhythm: hold, soften, glance away, return. In a real situation, you might be talking in a cafe. She listens closely, your eyes meet, and instead of looking away quickly, she holds your gaze slightly longer than expected. A subtle smile forms. Then she looks down for a moment, almost as if processing what she feels, and looks back up. That cycle is the signal. Most men miss it because they escape the intensity too early. They look away, laugh, or shift focus the moment things feel emotionally charged. But in doing so, they interrupt the connection right as it starts forming. Some of the strongest attraction moments exist in silence, in those brief pauses where nothing is said but everything is felt. When you understand this, you stop guessing and start recognizing patterns. And that changes everything about how you move in these interactions. Today, I want to break down 3 of the clearest signals that indicate a woman's attraction has already been activated. But stay with this until the end, because the third signal is the one most men experience in real situations and completely misread at the exact moment it matters most. Before we go further, there's something important you need to understand. If you've missed moments like this before, it was never because you weren't confident enough, attractive enough, or socially skilled enough. The real reason is much simpler. You were never taught how to interpret the language of female attraction. And that language is not direct. It doesn't come through words or obvious actions. It shows up through subtle shifts, emotional cues, and behavioral patterns most people overlook completely. Think back to situations you may have already experienced. You're talking to a woman, the conversation feels natural, there's laughter, ease, connection building, but nothing ever actually happens. Later, you replay it in your mind, wondering what you missed. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. Most men go through the exact same thing without realizing what was happening beneath the surface. Once you learn to recognize these patterns, your entire perception of social interaction changes. From the perspective of high feminine intimacy, this isn't theory or manipulation, it's awareness. It's about noticing the subtle psychological signals that naturally appear when attraction is already present. Attraction rarely starts loudly. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, through small behaviors that seem insignificant at first. And if you don't know what to look for, you will miss it every time. Men tend to express attraction directly. Women don't. Instead, they test, observe, and create small openings to see how you respond. She rarely moves first in an obvious way. She waits to see if you recognize the space she's already created. From a psychological standpoint, this is rooted in emotional safety. The mind evaluates before it engages. That's why attraction shows up in signals rather than statements. Let's start with the first one. She initiates light physical contact without necessity. A single touch means little, but repetition changes everything. Does she touch your arm more than once? Does her hand linger slightly longer than normal? Does she repeat this throughout the interaction? That pattern is what matters. When attraction is present, the body seeks proximity. Touch becomes a way of testing comfort, checking whether closeness feels safe and natural. That extra second before she pulls away is important. It reflects hesitation mixed with curiosity. For example, a man once described a dinner where a woman kept touching his arm while reacting to his stories. At first, he dismissed it as friendliness, but then he noticed a pattern. Each touch lingered, followed by a pause where she looked at him as if waiting for something. He didn't respond. The moment passed. Later, he learned she had been interested but assumed he wasn't. That's how subtle this is and how easily it disappears. So what do? You stay grounded. No overreaction. No forcing escalation. You simply stay present, match the energy, maintain eye contact, and allow the moment to exist. Attraction grows in pauses, not pressure. Now let's go deeper. Signal 2 is found in her eye contact. Not just whether she looks at you, but how she looks at you. When attraction is present, eye contact lasts slightly longer than normal. Not intense or uncomfortable, but charged. Then she breaks it, not randomly, but often by glancing downward before returning her gaze. That downward glance signals emotional softness, a brief release of tension before reconnecting. It creates a rhythm: look, hold, glance down, return. In real life, she might listen closely, maintain eye contact longer than expected, show a subtle smile, glance down briefly, then look back up again. That cycle is the signal. Most men break it too early. When it feels intense, they look away or shift focus, interrupting the connection right as it forms. Some of the strongest attraction moments exist in silence because silence amplifies presence. Try this. Next time she holds your gaze, pause for 1 extra second before reacting. That alone changes everything. It signals calmness, control, emotional stability. Because eye contact isn't just about looking, it's about being seen. Looking is passive, seeing is intentional. When she feels that you are truly present with her, something shifts. She feels acknowledged on a deeper level, and that acknowledgement allows attraction to grow safely. Because beneath everything, the mind is asking, is this interest real and is it safe to explore? Not physical safety, emotional safety, the freedom to express without judgment. But none of this works if your internal state doesn't match. Anxiety, neediness, or validation seeking will block these signals from deepening. Attraction grows when your energy is calm, grounded, and aligned. Now we move to the third signal. And this is the one most men miss, because it doesn't look like attraction. It looks like coincidence, but it isn't. She begins creating privacy where none existed before. When attraction builds with trust, she naturally shifts the interaction from public space into something more private, not directly, but subtly. In group settings, attention is scattered. Then she changes the structure, moving slightly aside, lowering her voice, or creating a reason to be alone with you. She might say, let's go over there, or step away and continue talking just with you. On the surface, it feels casual. But the key detail is simple. She chose you. Lowering her voice also matters. It creates intimacy and focus, signaling emotional closeness. But here's where most men fail. They physically follow the shift, but mentally stay unchanged. They keep things casual, surface level, and miss the transition completely. So the moment fades. Because when she creates space and you don't step into it fully, the energy dissolves. To respond correctly, first recognize the shift. Second, match her energy. Slow down, lower your voice, become present. Third, gently deepen the conversation. Not intensely, but meaningfully. And finally, stay in it. Don't rush mentally. Don't overthink outcomes. Just be there. Because what she's really testing is not your words, but your presence. Can you stay without escaping the moment? Now connect everything. She initiates touch. Her eye contact deepens. She creates private space. Individually, they can be dismissed. Together, they form a clear pattern of attraction mixed with curiosity and emotional testing. And this is where most men fail, not because they don't see it, but because they hesitate when they do. So remember this. You don't need perfection. You only need awareness and the willingness to respond when the moment appears. That alone puts you ahead of most people because you didn't miss those moments due to lack of worth. You missed them because you didn't understand the language. Now you do. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. In the end, all three signals come down to one simple truth. Attraction doesn't announce itself, it reveals itself quietly through behavior, timing, and emotional shifts. When a woman feels interest, she shows it through subtle patterns like touch, eye contact, and creating private space. But none of it matters if you don't recognize it in real time. The real difference isn't luck or confidence, it's awareness. Most men don't miss opportunities because they're not enough, but because they don't understand the language being used. Once you learn to see these signals as patterns instead of random moments, your entire understanding of connection changes. And from that point on, you don't just interact, you actually recognize what's happening while it's happening.